To unwind, the woman traveled a long distance to visit the filming location of Romeo and Juliet. But just as she stepped into the vacation house, full of anticipation, she discovered a man inside, shirtless. Who are you? Who am I? What are you doing here? I'm sorry, are you insane? You've just walked in here. No, I rented this villa. To prove herself, the woman deliberately showed her booking confirmation, but to her surprise, the man had the same proof. After confirming that the man wasn't lying, Julie used her phone to call the owner of the house. And there's a really obnoxious yet fit man here by the name of Charlie Fletcher who claims that he has rented the villa for the same time? Perhaps the owner was busy as no one answered the call, so Julie left a detailed voicemail explaining what had happened. Seeing this, Charlie, now dressed, couldn't help but laugh. He had been staying at this romantic vacation house at this time of year for 6 straight years and had never once been able to reach the owner. Julie had been looking forward to this trip to Verona for a long time, so there was no way she would give up just because of Charlie's few words. Luckily, the house looked quite spacious, and it seemed there was enough room for the two of them to stay. Where's the bedroom? Yeah, there's only one bedroom in the villa. You get the couch. But after learning that she would be spending the next week sleeping on the sofa, Julie was already feeling reluctant to stay. Then, early the next morning, the mysterious owner Silvio suddenly arrived. Woken up by the commotion, Julie noticed how warmly the two were greeting each other and instinctively asked, "I thought you said you never met before." "Oh, yeah, I lied. I was just trying to get rid of you." Filled with resentment, she asked Silvio to settle the dispute. From Silvio's guilty expression and apologetic tone, Julie learned that it hadn't been intentional to rent the house to 2 people at once. The listing had been posted on 2 different apps, and after one booking was confirmed, the owner forgot to take it down from the other. It was all due to a simple mistake. So, Silvio offered to fully refund Julie's payment. Before today, Julie might have chosen to move out and find a nearby hotel. But after learning that Charlie had tried underhanded tricks to force her out, Julie's desire for revenge was burning strong. No matter how much Silvio tried to persuade her, she insisted that Charlie should leave. But it was clear that Silvio had a better relationship with Charlie, and by the rule of first come, first served, it should actually be Julie who had to leave. In the end, Silvio refunded both Charlie and Julie's payments and agreed to let them both stay until the end of the holiday, putting an end to the argument. Have a good time. Ciao, Juta. Seeing Charlie's indifferent attitude, Julie grew even angrier. Unable to think of a good way to get back at him, she felt the room was a bit hot. When she found that the only fan was broken, she opened the balcony window. Charlie immediately tried to stop her, but it was already too late. Soon, a group of stray cats rushed into the house, turning the place into chaos. After Julie carried them out one by one, Charlie's face was already breaking out in rashes from his cat allergy. Seeing this, Julie's face was full of apology. But deep down, a bold, new idea was forming. Determined to drive Charlie out and have the house to herself, Julie went out early the next morning and bought several pounds of green olives from a street vendor. Then, while Charlie was still asleep, she carefully placed the olives all around him. As the stray cats came rushing in, terrifying wails quickly filled Charlie's room. Charlie? Bonjour, Julie. Julie never expected that even after resorting to such a low trick, Charlie would still remain calm. Not only did he refuse to move out, but there wasn't even a trace of anger on his face. How did you lure so many cats into my bedroom? Green olives. What? Cook it. Charlie also hadn't expected that Julie would go to such lengths just to mess with him. Suppressing his growing anger, he decided it was time to fight back. I'm afraid you've started a war you can't possibly win. You Mr. Smart. Seeing Julie's nonchalant attitude, Charlie grabbed 2 glasses. Ancient Romans used to toast their enemies before going off to war. It's considered bad luck not to respect your adversary. At that moment, this war without gunfire was officially declared. Half an hour later, with a swollen face, Charlie got ready to go to work. On his way downstairs, he happened to run into a delivery man bringing in luggage. Suspicious by nature, he asked whether the suitcases were meant for Julie. When the man confirmed it, an idea suddenly popped into Charlie's mind. He claimed that Julie no longer lived here and that the house now belonged to him. As the man asked curiously, Charlie made up a vivid story. After making sure the man completely believed him, he quietly suggested that since Julie had once been dedicated to charity before she lost her mind, he could help by donating the clothes to a local orphanage. Moved by sympathy and admiration for Julie, the man quickly carried out the task. When Julie, still waiting for her suitcases, called to ask about them, she didn't blame the staff but put the entire fault on Charlie. So, her pranks escalated once again. First, she glued the lock to make it seem broken, then called a locksmith and Silvio. While Charlie was out, they changed the lock cylinder. When Charlie returned that night, he found that no matter what he did, he couldn't open the door. But after a brief moment of thought, he immediately realized it must have been Julie's doing. Clever as he was, Charlie thought of entering through the balcony, but he overestimated his jumping ability. From below, watching Charlie hanging midair, Julie calmly took out her phone and snapped a photo of his embarrassing state, then called the local police. What is this? Yes? I'd like to report a break-in. And just like that, Charlie was treated as a burglar and had to sit in the holding cell for 5 full hours before the police verified his identity. After being released, Charlie was furious. Battling the sudden downpour, he returned to the house, glaring at the relaxed Julie, his words laced with threats. Can you? Sweet dreams. That night, Julie tossed and turned, terrified that she might not survive till morning, enduring a restless night. When Charlie hadn't made a move by the next day, Julie finally began to relax. But little did she know. While visiting Juliet's house, she noticed that all the tourists were glancing at her, some even offering comfort and encouragement. Finally, as she walked into the courtyard, Julie suddenly realized the truth. Charlie had found her diary from months ago, written after a breakup, and posted it in such a public spot. How could you? Sorry, but I warned you. And besides, I thought it was good luck to put letters on Juliet's wall. Enraged to the point of laughter, Julie was about to declare an all-out war. But then Charlie, changing from his earlier teasing tone, sincerely apologized for what he'd done, and even offered to cook a meal to make amends. Of course, Julie didn't believe Charlie was being so kind-hearted, but out of curiosity, she agreed to the dinner. Seeing how cautious she was, Charlie showed a mischievous smile. Julie instantly sensed something was off and quickly swapped the wine. As the red wine went down her throat, Julie didn't notice anything unusual. Relieved, she began to enjoy the food. Watching her eat so heartily, Charlie innocently explained the ingredients and origins of the dish. Horse? Marinated in wine. He had done his homework and learned that in Julie's hometown, people never eat horse meat, which is why he'd prepared this strange dinner. Julie's defenses crumbled and she grabbed the food on the table to start a battle with Charlie. Since food didn't hurt much, they soon switched to using utensils as weapons. Their commotion quickly caught the attention of tourists outside, and local security arrived again. The guards' warnings worked. Both of them immediately lost the desire to mess with each other. Sitting gloomily on the sofa, Julie watched as Charlie chose a bottle of red wine, apologized again, and explained how the horse meat dish had come about. When marinated in amarone, portobello mushroom can taste an awful lot like meat. The meat was mushrooms? Yes. But I want you to know that everything else in there was totally worth it. Realizing it was just a false alarm, Julie's gloom lifted instantly. Their relationship also began to ease a little. Fueled by the wine, they apologized to each other for everything they'd done before. The change happened so suddenly. Now reconciled, they sat quietly on the balcony. Charlie voluntarily gave up the fight over the house and booked a room at a nearby luxury hotel. Grateful, Julie suggested taking him on a little tour. Along the way, Charlie shared the real purpose of his trip, or rather, why he came to this vacation house every year. It turned out that he was a sommelier, and less than 10 kilometers away, there was a vineyard that hosted an annual wine gathering at this time each year. This year, in addition to making new connections, Charlie had also been tasked with acquiring a struggling winery. In short, although he came every year, he had never once taken the time to enjoy the local scenery. Julie volunteered to be his guide and took Charlie to the Wishing Fountain and Juliet's house. Since it was already late at night, many attractions were closed. Because they had both been drinking, they returned to the vacation house early. Still going to the hotel? I'm late. It's a bit drunk. That night, Julie finally got to sleep in the bed. The next morning, she woke up early, cleaned up the battlefield from the day before, bought coffee downstairs, and after freshening up, woke the still sleeping Charlie. Seeing how spotless the house was, he couldn't help but praise her. Julie simply chuckled and suggested, "You've been here 6 times and you've never seen the place. You need a tour. And I am your tour guide." After spending some time with him the night before, Julie realized that Charlie wasn't as annoying as she had imagined. In fact, with their relationship now shifted, she even found that Charlie had many good qualities. Since the wine gathering wasn't until the evening and Charlie was now free, he agreed to Julie's suggestion. They visited the Lovelock Wall together and stopped by Juliet's secretary's office. Why would anyone want to spend their days writing letters on behalf of a fictional girl who's been dead for 700 years? Because love, right? Here's how brilliant, Fletcher. They were practically inseparable that entire day. On the bridge, they talked about their family backgrounds. Walking toward the city's edge, they shared their views on romance and fate. Sitting by the sea, they began swapping funny stories from their past lives, and later even opened up about their relationship histories. Since Julie had never attended an industry-only wine event before, Charlie extended an invitation. Before night fully set in, he took her to the vineyard. Because he still had work to do, Charlie entrusted Julie to the vineyard owner, Carlo. Throughout the tour, Julie was so amazed that her mouth never closed. There were so many things she'd never experienced before. Well, Storm's thinking to a room up together. Kinda let me try a Zamaroni. Oh. After Carlo left, music suddenly began playing downstairs. In the peaceful atmosphere, Julie invited Charlie to dance. At such a close distance where they could feel each other's warmth, their eyes met again and again, creating a subtle air of intimacy. Charlie brushed her hair aside, his palm gently caressing her cheek, and his lips slowly moved closer, just as he was about to kiss Julie. I can't. You have to explain. Julie assumed that Charlie's apology was because he wasn't ready emotionally, but little did she know. Julie, his surprise! Julie, see your face. Mwah. Cassie was none other than Charlie's girlfriend, or to be exact, his ex-girlfriend. Hearing Cassie introduce herself to Julie as his girlfriend, Charlie couldn't help but correct her. At least that's what you called it when you went to New York without telling me. Ancient history. It was 2 weeks ago. Recent history. Whatever. We're engaged. This was, in fact, the real reason why Charlie hadn't kissed Julie. Though he and Cassie had officially broken up, the engagement ring was still in Cassie's possession. Until he fully closed that chapter of his past, he felt unworthy of starting a new relationship. Charlie had only known Julie for a few days, and they'd truly spent just 1 full day together. But in that seemingly short day, Charlie was shocked to realize he might be falling for the very girl who had almost landed him in jail. And wasn't Julie feeling the same way? Since she had no right to interfere, the only thing Julie could do was to distance herself and avoid what she couldn't bear to see. After Charlie and Cassie arrived at the hotel, Julie returned to the romantic vacation house. At that moment, none of them could have imagined. The obstacles standing in their way weren't limited to Cassie alone. Early the next morning, Julie was woken by loud knocking at the door. She thought it was Charlie, who had already broken up at the door. But to her surprise... Hi, Julie. It was Brandon, the man Julie had written about in her diary. Back then, she had been eagerly waiting for his proposal, but instead, she'd received a breakup. After months of reflection, Brandon had changed his mind. But could his heartfelt attempt to reconcile really succeed? If this had been before meeting Charlie, Julie might have agreed to get back together. But after meeting Charlie, she finally understood what she truly needed. That evening, Julie chose a restaurant where she planned to tell Brandon that she wouldn't be looking back and was ready to move on completely. But to her surprise, the restaurant was already full. What she didn't expect even more was that Cassie and Charlie were also there. Julie was about to turn and leave, but noticing them, Cassie enthusiastically came over and invited them to sit together. Not knowing the situation, Brandon didn't hesitate at all and followed along to the table. Seeing Brandon, Charlie was shocked. As the one who had exposed the diary, he certainly recognized this man. As they all sat down, the atmosphere instantly grew awkward. Charlie and Julie silently ate the food on their plates, while the completely unaware Cassie and Brandon seemed to have endless topics to talk about. Hearing Cassie go on about how loving her relationship with Charlie was, Julie felt extremely uncomfortable. She poured the entire bottle of red wine into her own glass. Julie had heard Charlie say before that, as a sommelier, the one thing he couldn't tolerate was seeing good wine treated poorly. The tension at the table grew thicker. Even the previously chatty Cassie and Brandon began to fall silent, confused by the sudden change. Charlie and Julie temporarily took over the conversation, playfully coming up with different ways to praise their own partner.
Excuse me, but are you Julie? I told you this. We're sorry to interrupt. We just wanted to tell you that you are an inspiration to us. I just went through a breakup myself, and it was devastating. But then I read your diary on Juliet's wall, and it was like he was speaking to me. If you're not giving up on love, neither am I.
Oh, and Brandon is an arse.
What? A major arse.
Love story. To avoid further awkwardness, Julie pretended to feel dizzy and suggested leaving with Brandon to rest at the vacation house. As they passed Juliet's house, Brandon paused, beginning to apologize for his past decisions. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, Charlie ignored Cassie's questions, his mind filled with memories of moments he had shared with Julie, until his emotions finally took over. I'm done. He spoke about all the unhappy moments he had experienced with Cassie, about how fulfilling his life had been lately, and finally about the uncontrollable feelings he now had for Julie. Cassie forced a smile, trying not to show any sadness, and calmly removed the engagement ring from her finger. Charlie thanked her for understanding, then rushed off toward the vacation house as fast as he could. But just as he passed Juliet's house, he happened to see Brandon slipping a proposal ring onto Julie's finger. A flood of disappointment, regret, and frustration filled Charlie's heart, making him turn and walk away. What he didn't see was that shortly after he left, Julie returned the ring to Brandon, firmly ending their relationship. The next day, their final day of vacation, they both, as if by unspoken agreement, visited the same scenic spots they had explored together before, lingering in places filled with memories. While Charlie stood at Verona's Madonna fountain, lost in thought, Silvio came over especially to bid farewell. Julie's boyfriend came into town yesterday, and by last night, he was Beyonce.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. What did you do now? What do you mean?
L'amore trova una via.
Silvio's words were inspired by the story of Romeo and Juliet, as summarized by locals. Passionate and pure, brave enough to break through all restraints, with love, one can overcome any obstacle. This also reflected Juliet's own view on love. Awakened by these words, Charlie hurried to Juliet's house and found Julie just about to leave.
I broke it with Cassie. Turns out I'm in love with someone else.
With a smile on her face, Julie slowly walked up to him and teasingly asked, "Why do you like me?"
I really miss eating fake horse with you. I know that you're engaged. I saw last night, and I know I'm probably too late now.
Before Charlie could reply, Julie eagerly raised her left hand, now bare of the engagement ring. And so, the story ended with all misunderstandings resolved and two lovers finally coming together.